Let's call the infrastructure committee meeting to order. Roll call, Melissa.
Steve Brenner.
I'm here.
Keith Fair will be absent. Jen Reimer is joining by phone.
Oh, sorry.
Jen Reimer will be joining by phone. Fred Noble
Here.
and Dave Racer.
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, we'll have public comment. Just a reminder that all public comments, as rude as I need to be, will be 5 minutes at length at most. Any public comment, please?
Leslie Turner, 1400 Dauphin Avenue, regarding the cats. We were very happy to report that all of the cats 2 weeks ago have been TDNR'd. Until last week, one of our cats was removed. The person who we were familiar with, Lisa decided to give one of them away, and she's also already reintroduced another cat that we now have to trap next weekend. So we're concerned. So I wanted to just, we can't keep doing this if she's gonna give away the cats that we've TDNR'd and bring new cats in. It's already about, we've calculated $3,800 a year for us to feed these cats. We're not interested in adding to the colony, so we need help going forward monitoring and making sure she doesn't bring more cats in. That's it.
How many cats have you done whatever you need to do to them?
18. But we have 5 were adopted out because they were kittens, and we have 13, and then 1 was given away.
I have an update under my codes report as to the status of that property.
Okay. Do you want to wait till we hear that?
Sure.
Could be long. Wait a second. One. Any other public comment? Mr. Jadik?
I think I wanted to urge you to look into this deeper. I think we need more action in this. I think the matter is more complex. We have a similar situation up on Cardinal Road. We have from cats to groundhogs to fox to you name it. And we believe that one issue is that certain properties are just left unkept. Whether it's a slope or not, I think that the residents have a certain obligation to keep it clean. We have trees, branches, things that fall down, rot, and harbor all sorts of animals. And if we don't take action to contain this, we will continue to have this problem. So I think that somehow it has, because on one hand, like I said, we NOV, I said before, we NOV people for having a little bit too much grass in their backyard. But on the other hand, we let whole trees stay on a property forever. Broken fences, and so on. I think we have to look at this from a holistic point of view and take some action because we need to curb the situation. I understand the situation over there. We have a similar, we have cats. My security camera just picks up cats all night long. We haven't started catching them, but they're there. So again, I think we have to look at it from a general point. We're not talking about the parklands, or it's not a forest, it's still a private property, a small private property, 1/3 of an acre. They need to be cleaned so we can avoid or reduce the problem. Okay? Thank you so much.
Please.
William Peterson, I reside at 1235 Parkside Drive North. And since most of you already heard this, this is going to be an abbreviated version of what was at council. So this is in regards to the Stonehouse Park project. We consider it to be the park one of, if not the gem of Wyomissing. And the view from Parkside Drive North is the best view of the park from a street. And from I hold a BS in recreation. So from a recreational, psychological perspective, that beautiful view, when you look at it, you see the trees, the beautiful trees, a rolling green lawn, a tranquil pond, has a calming effect, which allows for the release of stress, not only for those of us who live across the street, but from people who drive on Parkside Drive North. all of the residents of Wyomissing basically. And so, this perspective, this planned parking lot would intrude upon the natural beauty of that vista and impacts a large number, if not all, Wyomissing residents. Now, we understand that there have been comments about designated parking from some of those who have used the stone house, and as far as we know, it's not of an official nature, but they're one of the reasons for the proposed parking lot, as far as we can. This perspective should be, however, compared with the rest of the residents of Wyomissing who experience the Stonehouse Vista on a regular basis. And to our knowledge, this has not been done, as I said before. We just found about this word of mouth. Therefore, taking into consideration both groups, those who have commented about designated parking and those who are concerned about the view of the park, we would like to propose an alternate plan that could serve as a starting point for further discussion that would benefit both parties. I don't know if now I have a short paragraph I can go through. Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay. Instead of the proposed parking lot, there could be an inset like the current handicap one in front of the stone house. This would provide parallel parking and extend from the stone house to the access road near the tennis court with the walkway alongside of it. And on the Wyomissing Boulevard side, there could be additional parking spots, some for loading and unloading, and another walkway leading to the stone house, and perhaps even one going to Wyomissing Boulevard, connecting Wyomissing Boulevard. And the alternate plan would provide for less obvious intrusion into the park, a low profile, which would not impose itself upon the view, safe walkways, easier access to the stone house, no impact on family sledding or concert seating on the hill beside the house, and also preserve the 3 trees that will be cut down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Feel free.
Doug Dell, 1217 Parkside Drive North. I haven't got back, so.
It's all good.
Anyway, I have several questions. So the grant was from whom? Federal government, state government?
Public comment's not a Q&A session.
I'm sorry?
Public comment is not a question and answer session.
When can we question?
You can make your statement now, and you can include things that you wish to receive information about as part of your comment. But we're not gonna have a dialogue at this point.
Oh. Okay. Well, my comments are, I'm still a little confused by the fact that no one is really informed of this project. It directly affects people in my block and also to a certain extent Ed Trexler, just up a little bit from me. And every other project that I've been on involving building and getting input from people, that's always been one of the 2 top priorities. The first one is the EPA. The second one is how does it affect those people that will be affected by the project. And that wasn't done. And I think that's a mistake on everyone's part. The other thing that was mentioned to me, and I think to Will, was that it wouldn't affect property values. Well, it will affect property values, there's no question about that. But forget all that, ask yourselves, how's it going to affect the Stonehouse property? How many of you have been in the Stonehouse property, walked around the pond, driven down Parkside Drive North in the last week, the month, or year? I do it twice a day with my Greyhound. I know Ed Trexler did it when he had Buster. And we see what's going on, and we see what it's like. And if you put in a, 10-car or 12-car parking lot, what is it? Anybody know? I don't know. You're going to affect permanently the aesthetics of the stone house. Stone house, it has very little property on either side. You have the stream, little property, stone house, and then Parkside Drive North. You're gonna be taking a big chunk of that for no foreseeable reason that I can see. I guess the state mandates certain, handicap, spaces, which I'm perfectly comfortable with. I don't think it needs to be, taking, park land or stone house land. I think cutoffs would be fine. As far as, I just don't see what the need is. On the parking lot on Parkside Drive South, is usually not filled up. I drove by the last 10 days, I made a point of going by morning, noon, and early evening. In the morning, 30%. With the exception of a week ago, Saturday, when it was closer to 70, it was a nice day. In the afternoon, it's 30% to 60%. And in the evening, when I come out of the YR club, there are usually 2 or 3 people there. My concern is that, as Michelle told me when I spoke to her beforehand, that we all know the park closes at sunset. Well, there are cars there after sunset. And if this proposal goes through for the Stone House, there will be cars in the Stone House parking area after sunset. That presents some sort of, I would think, crime issue. And so I am very concerned about that. What else am I concerned about? I'm concerned about the sledding. Those of you that have driven by Parkside Drive North when it snows, doesn't snow that often, can see little kids having a great time with their family sledding. That'll be gone. There's a beautiful magnolia tree near the Stone House. I haven't seen the plans, but I assume that will be cut down. There's also an iconic, there are 3 basic trees that are just iconic for that area. There are locust trees, walnut trees, and American elms. The American elms are gone. There's a beautiful, probably 70-foot tall locust tree that will be taken down. Any of you that have driven by or on Parkside Drive North in the early summer, when the locust trees are blooming, know how that perfumes the whole area. When the leaves are,
Your time is up.
I'm sorry,
Your time is up. I'm sorry.
thank you.
Anybody else? No one else? No other public comment? Thank you for your comments. All right, moving on. Zoning and codes report.
The report's pretty self-explanatory. I wanted to give several updates. Mrs. Turner and I, along with Jeff Hogue from Kraft, were in court at Judge Taylor's office on Friday for 1413 Dolphin Avenue. 2 citations were filed against the property owner, one for the number of cats that were being kept, one for urination or defecation on property other than that of the animal owner. Judge Taylor found the property owner guilty of the number of household pets, not guilty of the public urination and defecation, and more importantly, he also ordered restitution to Mrs. Turner in the amount of $1,000. As Mrs. Turner stated, I have been made aware by the ARL that they considered the case closed because of the property owner's mental health issues. I have had a conversation with the solicitor as to looking at alternative means of enforcement action the borough can take, and we'll give the committee an update once we have more information on that.
What's the restitution for?
The amount of out-of-pocket money.
Very expensive.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand.
35 Dorchester, there was a zoning violation notice issued against that property owner at the beginning of the summer. The owner did nothing to comply. The 30-day appeal period through the zoning hearing board expired, and the property remained out of compliance. Chris's office prepared a civil suit that was filed with Judge Taylor's office. That hearing was held, I believe, about 3 weeks ago, and a summary judgment in favor of the borough has been entered for $12,129.25. And finally, 1741 Paper Mill Road, which is the former Crown Plaza in Radisson. I wanted to update the committee that all outstanding building permits have been paid for and picked up. The past due utility account balance has been paid, and the water and sewer service have been turned back on. And I've been told it's being fit out as a hotel. So I'm hoping to have more information for economic development next week. Joe, do you have anything you want to add? if anybody wants to, you all got my email about Bonton.
Yep.
Up on the screen are photos from the fire marshal where you can see the areas of ceiling collapse. So every entrance to the Bonton has been placarded as condemned uninhabitable. The additional violation notices were hand-delivered to mall management on Friday. They have until Wednesday to complete all outstanding issues, or the rest of the mall will be condemned,
Except Boscov's.
except for Boscov's and cleanings. Yes,
That includes the parking lot issues,
yes.
so you have to fix the parking lot by Wednesday?
I believe that was the time frame.
I got a utility one call Friday for excavating sinkholes in there.
Well, they're taking it seriously, that's good.
Good. It's a shame. I know. Wish them the best of luck. Okay, anything else for the zoning codes report?
Just closed out the agenda by accident. Give me 1 second, I accidentally just closed out the agenda.
Okay, moving on. 4th and Oley Pump Station, which I just viewed, it was nice.
Have that drawing of the,
Yeah.
this item 5, kind of ties in with item 15. If you don't mind, I
With the laser pointer?
You have the laser pointer.
The star.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, this is Berkshire Heights. All the sewage in Berkshire Heights has to get pumped, with the exception of the old cop building and down here at Reed Road. But everything else gets pumped to one of two places. Up here at the Wynwood apartment complex is the Wynwood pump station. And behind the Borough garage is the 4th and Oley pump station. That magenta line is the drainage basin for Wynwood. And if it's not within that purple magenta line, then it goes to 4th and Oley. When Wynwood pumps, it pumps it up to Windsor Street where it goes gravity and then comes back down to 4th and Oley. So anything within the magenta actually gets pumped twice. And when I say get pumped, it eventually gets over the Park Road Bridge. At the crest of the Park Road Bridge, under the sidewalk, it'll go gravity down to the treatment plant. My concern, long-term, is that I hear a lot of redevelopment talk over here, be it, I think there's some townhouses or apartments going here at the end of Windsor Street. As we all know, the Inn of Reading just got purchased.
Not yet.
Not yet, or is going to get purchased. There's talk of apartment buildings here at the, what Wells Fargo used to be, apartment complex here, outside of Jim's old office. So all these things combined is a lot of extra sewage that has to get pumped either once or twice. And it's just a concern of mine about that, which we can talk about at item 15.
So that's it for this item,
Yeah.
we're gonna pick it up again at item 15. That what you're telling me? Okay.
No, they're here for item 4,
Oh,
but I guess we're waiting till 15 to put them together. It's up to you.
yeah, we can do it, let's stick with item 4.
Okay, so, they're here for the what do we call it now? What's the latest?
Van Reed.
Apartments on Van Reed, I thought you changed it this way, which has 210 apartments, and that all flows
To be
to,
clear, this is the building on Van Reed above from the old Friendlies.
yeah, it used to be right next to our old office.
Okay.
The old meeting last week. We're moving today, if everyone didn't know that, to 1011 North Park Road.
From the scratch.
So our back building is what we're striving.
Okay, moving.
So their sewage runs down, hits Park, goes around and ends up down the 4th and Oley pump station, which currently does not have capacity for their sewage. So the thing that infrastructure really needs some direction on is, with other redevelopment projects happening in where Jim showed the magenta area, which goes to Linwood, eventually to Fourth and Oley, or directly to Fourth and Oley, which would be their project. Now we have the one that Greg Bozier brought for conditional use last week. That all flows to those pump stations. With some of capacity, what, if anything, does the borough want them conceptually be designed for in excess of what is needed for these two projects? So let's just say they're 210, what was Bozier, 54?
56.
But just call it 275 for a round number, new sewer connections. Do we wanna build it for 270, permit design, build it for 275? Generally, that's not recommended because to then increase it again is almost the same cost as what we just spent. But then we don't wanna make it too big because we don't wanna spend a bunch of money and have capacity we never need. So there's kind of many questions to go. That's the first one of what does the borough infrastructure ultimately council want that station designed for, in addition to what we know is coming today. That's not counting on what's coming potentially in Reading, which could be 300 apartments.
Plus retail.
Plus
restaurant.
retail, restaurants, we don't know. And then secondarily, so the number gets determined, the council has, and infrastructure recommends, how do we then allocate costs? What portion gets paid for by developers now that we know are coming? What portion of that gets paid for by the borough and then reimbursed as developers come on in the future? So there's obviously a bunch of different variations of how that funding and reimbursement can occur. But probably the biggest thing we need up front to know is how much additional capacity do we want to plan for that, so we can come back with a cost. This is pretty similar to what we did for the West Lawn Interceptor with the Highlands. It was somewhat simpler because we just knew the Highlands was the only customer increasing in that drainage basin. So we came up with a price, determined the Highlands' fair share, they paid for that. That was easy, we didn't have the unknowns of what additional. But it's kind of a little similar to that, how the cost gets shared, and Chris can tell you, there's several different ways the cost can get shared under, essentially the Authorities Act kind of guides this, that boroughs would follow the same standard of, they can pay up front and have a 10-year cost reimbursement. It could be a combination, the borough could pay, determine a tapping fee for everyone in that district. The borough could pay the whole thing, and they could, or borough could pay part, they could pay part. So there's a bunch of different mechanisms that can get worked out that way, but kind of to get the price, we didn't know how big we're gonna make it. Because pumps are the cheapest part of the pump station. When we increase pumps, we need to increase electric service, emergency generators. Every other thing increases, like the Berkshire Boulevard pump station now that's a bigger station than either two we're talking about, but that's $703,000 to upgrade. And that, the pumps were probably $100. Everything else was the additional. So when people say, oh, pumps only cost $25,000 to $30,000 a piece, that's the pump. It's like saying you bought a wheel for your car, that's not getting you there. So,
How about the pipes, the size of the lines, are they big enough?
the gravity lines going to the stations are big enough. We enlarged Fourth and Oley from the intersection down to the pump station. That was done by, Ag was paid for that upgrade as part of the VF North Ducom project. And we happened to have a contractor doing other work at the pump station that year, so that was done at the same time. So the gravity lines, for what we anticipate, like for example, their project on Van Reed and the one next to Loomis's Conference Center building, the gravity lines have capacity to take that to the pump station.
I would expect at some point 220 North Park Road is gonna be redeveloped. That property just changed hands within the past 6 months, and I know the new owner intends to sit on the current leases, which have anywhere from a 2 to 5 year term left on them.
Where is that?
Sunnyside down to A to Z, all the way back to the Kinsley property. So everything that's in there, Diggity Dog, what used to be Building 7, well, Building 7 is still back there, Core Fitness used to be back there, Keystone Turning, there's like a hair salon.
We have no idea what their intent is, right?
That,
I would
Under the
guess
line,
mixed
right?
use.
So the way I'm reading this, we have 210
just for
Right.
one project.
So we'll do 75, well, we'll make it 275 for the
No.
building on the contaminated area,
Right.
and, if it's contaminated. We're talking about potentially another, how many at the, in at Reading?
300?
300 plus retail and restaurants?
So,
And when
They
it's minor,
get
but
some.
there's townhouses or apartments that went on.
Six, there's
Street
6
that
units
have-
there.
Wouldn't it be prudent to, look at, in that drainage, area, look at all the properties that are yet to be developed and kind of speculate as to what EDU use would be for each of those?
There's 2 lots, theirs and the one down the street across, well, further down from the Alon building.
But there may be other ones too.
I think we'd be
Smaller
more
ones.
likely to see redevelopment,
Yeah.
like taking one of those older uses that doesn't generate a lot of sewage, for
Right,
example.
it's really speculative.
They're like they're back there by like the union, office, and another building's been vacant for a while, that office on the corner, used to be a laboratory. I don't think I've been in there yet.
Well, A Tree,
Simple
Well,
math
if you
tells me
like-
we're at
yeah.
610-ish, including those things at the end of Windsor. But that
Right,
doesn't-
so for example, that's what would flow through Fourth and Oley, and then you would have the 300 plus going through the Winwood pump station. So it's kind of like, right now, we don't have to touch the Winwood for these 2 projects.
I'm sorry, where does the in at Reading go to?
Winwood
And
and Fourth and Oley. So it flows down, ties into Winwood pump station, gets pumped up to Windsor Street, flows down to Fourth and Oley, then gets pumped over the bridge.
And also, one we haven't mentioned, and I don't think it's a lot, but whatever's happening with Palmer is adding some sewage also.
So I have a question, if you front load all the anticipatory EDUs that you need, do you then back out what is needed by the current projects that are in the ground, so to speak, or would be in the ground imminently, and then look at the front-loaded anticipation for the future to be what somebody else would have to pay for, that these guys wouldn't have to pay anything but what we anticipate for the 3 projects?
That would be one of the methods that you could use and be compliant with the Authorities Act, right? If you did that and determine what their share was and what, essentially, I guess, for the ones that are unknown yet, that would almost be like the borough's share that we would then sell to them as they would have to have an impact fee or something. But they would basically reimburse the borough when those future developments came online, because I'm not their engineer, but we can't really put it all on them, what they don't need, just to be fair, you know.
I'm hearing, excuse me, I'm hearing that Ducom is going to increase, I mean, right now they have 60, they go to 100, which is the maximum capacity right now.
They're higher than 60. They're
Or-
higher than 60 right now,
Is
they're at
it now?
120.
You know, they're gonna go to capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, now, does that affect the gravity pipe, or does that affect after it hits the pump station?
The gravity line
The gravity line there is fine.
is fine for Ducom's full build out and for what they would be proposing, and the, as you called them.
For the other
fabricated site.
buildings, yeah. So it would just be leaving the pump station, going to West Reading.
Right, it'd be the pump station itself, pumping it through the force main to West Reading.
Would we be more desirable to people who want to develop if we had an expanded pump station in existence?
Sure.
So I'm hearing, we don't dig up pipes, we're not digging up pipes, we're making our.
The only
pump station.
unknown, and I think it's doubtful, is, at least for Fourth and Oley, that force main was probably put in the 50s or 60s, cast iron, 6-inch. It gave us a problem one time that I recall. I don't know if that would need to be increased in size or just newer, because it's 50, 60 years old, you know, that I don't know the answer to.
The shelf life of that.
Yeah.
I can find out.
That's a Jim question, I don't know, how do you determine whether a force main is wearing out, or if the gallons per day or gallons per minute exceeds 6-inch?
We can calculate that part's easy. The other one's relatively easy. We have like sewer specialists or somebody going and clean, televise it as far as they can from each end. We just did that in Kenhurst around the same era, 1940, cast iron force main. They cleaned it and looked at it and didn't have any major.
So for reason, it was still in decent shape.
Yeah, they have a little permanent, they've lost a little diameter on it from over the time, just deposits, but it's not in risk of imminent failure. And then we just check it with the reduced diameter. Instead of 6, it might be 5 1/4, based over the growth.
For the purpose of your development, you need council to make a decision on how big we want this capacity to be. Is that what I'm hearing?
For their
Yeah, I
cost
think-
assumption
I think
as
step
part,
3 is them, they need to know how much it's costing
Yeah.
them.
Right.
But we need step 1
and 2, to
and
get.
2 before we get to 3.
Right.
So,
So would there be new pumps, additional pumps, larger pumps, how's that work?
We knew, there'll be new larger pumps, and the new pumps,
There's 2 there, right?
you have to have 2 minimum, you have to be able to pass the peak flow with 1 pump out of operation to meet DEP criteria. And the newer pumps, we put variable frequency drives on so we can control them in this situation, say we upgraded it and nobody has built yet. We can just, with the turn of a dial, throttle the gallons per minute back down, and as they come on, we can, even as they're coming on, say over a 2-year period, we can, Jim, Greg, whoever can incrementally increase that gallons per minute, and there's a max that we can't get above. That way you're not spending a ton of electricity, it's a more economical and power efficient way to run.
So it would be up to you and Jim to determine the specific costs of their project and whoever else is out there right now that we're planning for imminently. And then whatever future stuff is another number that you'd have to come up with, and we'd have to see how that fits into what they're capable of doing.
It's more their share of the cost.
so.
Yeah,
so-
we can come
Jim,
up with
let me just see if I could do this in simple math. If we said we're gonna make capacity 1,000 gallons, or whatever, 1,000.
Right, 1,000 EDUs.
1,000 EDUs. Their share would be 21% of that, because you're 210 units, right? Am I anticipating that?
I think that's roughly.
I think that's roughly,
Good logic trying.
logic makes sense of that, yes.
Well, it's a good deal because the other 80% is really the big stuff that's down the road. If they don't have to pay for it, that's great. Not that we want to shake them down, but that's a good
Wouldn't you do
deal.
it all at once?
And we're gonna pay for it, they're not.
Right. Right, and there may come a point when we look at it and say, well, this is all we can give without increasing force main too, so, that may be a thing.
We lay off the entire cost of the future development.
Well, what we were talking about is to establish sort of a rate district for conveyance of sewage upstream of the Oley pump station. And so what we would do if that was the concept would be to assign a per EDU cost to any new connections in that drainage basin. And I think under the Authorities Act, we could establish a connection fee for new capacity in that drainage basin that would be separate and in addition to the per EDU charge that the sewer authority collects for getting into the treatment plant. So conceptually, I think that is achievable.
And I don't know, do they pay 50% of the total fee, of the total cost, or they're paying 100% of the total cost?
We would want to assign 100% to those new connections that are served.
So if we built 1,000 EDU pump station,
Well,
we could-
the pump station would serve more than 1,000. It would be the change in capacity that would be 1,000 additional EDUs.
right,
Because I don't know how many EDUs are in the pump station already.
We have it from the building records.
so if we added 1,000, they're 210, they pay 21% of the cost. We pay 89, Yeah,
Yeah.
79% of the number, and then we would, at some point down the road, if we got to a full 1,000, the borough would be paid for,
Pass it along.
Right.
to pass on to the next one.
So is that 700,000 from the Berkshire pump station, or is that a number that?
That's a big number, or this shouldn't be that big.
Okay.
That's a big
That's
station.
Boulevard Pump Station. It's not that it's big
It has a lot of
in
head.
volume. It's probably similar to Fourth and Oley, and we have I think, if you wanna put that up, we can put it up. It's volume per, it's gallons per day, but it pumps from, if you all know where it's at, in that shopping center, and that doesn't go gravity until you're in front of the liquor store on Woodland Road. It's a long, high elevation to get it up to gravity. Those pumps are 3 times the pumps at Fourth and Oley.
Right, because of the additional head elevation they have to pump vertically.
But we're not gonna need pumps that big.
No. Now you can look there, well, it looks on paper, that's 115,000 gallon a day station, but the pumps are huge.
Jim, as you're increasing capacity, does the cost of the increase go down?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like.
Per
wouldn't be-
EDU.
Right.
Per
so
EDU
it
cost,
wouldn't
yes.
be double to go from 500 to 1,000.
No, because you're upgrading everything, it's usually, fairly minimal unless you're making some gigantic jump that we have to start replacing the force main. That would be a several $1 million project to replace that force main.
So 1,000 EDUs, I think, is just pulling a number out of a hat. I think.
I was just using that as
Yeah,
an easy
but
math.
I think the rational process,
600. Well, you may be looking at 600.
well, what I would suggest
Start of the day.
as a possible action by the committee would be to assign to the gyms to look at the drainage basin, parcels within the drainage basin that are either slated for development or potential development or redevelopment sites, and what the reasonable number of EDUs for the development or redevelopment of those sites could be based on the zoning that exists right now. And I think that would be a rational process to come up with a
Makes
number
sense to
of
me, yeah.
EDUs. And then you could either have them come back and show you that and let you react to it, or you could immediately say, as part of that assignment, they should just go ahead and come up with a cost figure for a pump station upgrade based on whatever number they come up with for the potential use of that pump station. So, I don't know if that's the approach the committee wants to take, but that's a potential course.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna tell us the number, I'm assuming it's gonna be a pretty good number. Might as well give us the cost. You're gonna tell me it's 662 EDUs, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
I'm an insurance guy,
600 toilets.
Yeah.
so,
So
yeah,
there's a motion?
yeah, we need a motion.
I'll make that motion that we authorize. Let's go to the council, recommend the council to authorize engineer and Jim Public Works to do a land development analysis in that drainage basin and come up with a cost estimate for upgrading pump station.
When do we, okay, I'm sorry, we have a motion, the second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Jen, can you hear us still?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, the ayes have it. Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
You were gonna say, when do they need them? Upgraded?
Oh, yeah, when do we have to start acting on this?
Building
Late
Sooner
24?
than later.
This year.
24, you're gonna start?
24,
Open
starting 25?
25?
Yeah, depending on.
When are you gonna start flushing the
Fines.
toilets?
It could be 26 by that time, 27.
Well, from when you start building to when you're occupying, how long do you think you have time?
2-year project.
2-year project till you're flushing the first toilet after you break ground on the foundation?
26.
So probably
Future-
26
future
toilets
budgets,
or
that's,
something.
that's
27.
one issue. All right, so they're looking for us to say that they're gonna pay their share of whatever the EDU is. We'll charge an EDU fee based upon,
What'll happen is they need a sewer planning module approved by the borough, then ultimately forwarded to DEP, acknowledged by DEP and sent back. And in that, it would have to stay, we'd have to be to a point where they would commit to doing this or upgrades. And I assume there has to be some type of agreement or letter of intent or some acknowledgement. Because part of their, a condition of their planning module will be that they can start construction, but they can't begin flushing toilets until the upgrades at that station are complete. And then when it's done, we file a completeness report with DEP. So,
And how long do we think, once the upgrades, from ordering the pumps to finishing what we need to do, how long would that take? Roughly.
probably like permanent, design, permitting, bidding, and construction, you're probably looking at a year and a half.
Very honest, so.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have conditional,
They have conditional use approval and conditional final land development plan
I
approval.
don't think we know, based on the sewer module,
Yeah.
is the open item that we need to get. So we gotta have to get to this, get to the sewer get to this, so the sewer module can get processed, and we pass the resolution that goes to DEP, and continue working on the permitting and all that stuff.
So it's my anticipation that we'll get that number from you folks. You'll tell us how many we wanna do, and then each developer would be paying their per, basically a EDU fee per share of
Right.
that number.
Okay.
Is that what you guys are looking for?
I know we have holidays coming up, but do you think is this so time consuming that it'll take until the next infrastructure meeting, or given how close council, do you think it might get for the council meeting?
I think we can have probably the EDUs for council. I don't know that we'll have a good budget number back, because I
I
want
wouldn't
to,
do as much good until we have a budget.
I have to get the budget number from the pump station manufacturer.
And we have nothing in the budget for that for the '24, but we don't anticipate much expense in '24, it'll be in '25.
Right. Yeah, 24 you would have design and permitting costs, which are not,
Well, let's move forward, just assume, Chris, am I okay to say that? We'll just assume it's a per EDU fee for every developer, them and any other developer down the road.
Yes.
Okay. You guys good?
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Start digging.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on the Fourth and Oley pump station? I've had enough of that for the day. Twice, I've got another one coming. Western Berks Water Authority.
Okay, our normal operations are operating well as far as I know. The second item on the agenda is regarding the pipe under the Morris Street bypass. It goes over the creek. It was a backup situation going to a meter pit from Rawa. They have selected a contractor, and the contractor plans to repair that by December, or at least before the bad weather occurs. And the estimate that we have is roughly $185,000, $190,000. After some discussion with Rawa, they have agreed to pay for half of it. And Western Berks agreed to the other half, and Western Berks is respectfully requesting that the borough pay half of our, in other words, if it's 190, that's just 200,000, it's not gonna be that. So our share is 100,000. If you pick up half, that would be $50,000, and the water authority pay on the other 50. It's not gonna be, it's gonna, I'm making a motion that it be not to exceed $50,000. But it's a backup, which we don't use very often, it's strictly a backup, but it does give us insurance in case we would need it in the future. So it certainly is a benefit to the borough, and we think we are requesting that you help the water authority pay for that, and not to exceed 50.
So I gotta ask, I know I talked to you personally about it, but I gotta ask in this form.
Yes.
It seems like, Chris, we went from, at one point, we were gonna pay the whole thing to, we weren't gonna pay for anything. Now we're paying for a quarter of it.
It's per the agreement,
Is there-
we have no financial
I thought
responsibility.
we got a letter from, Western saying, this is coming to no cost to the borough of Wyomissing.
I don't know how, I
That
can't
was
imagine.
like, what,
I
a
thought we
year,
did too.
2 years ago?
I can't imagine why we would send a letter like that.
I don't think that was from Western Berks. I think it was a determination of Chris, myself, and Michelle from the agreement that Michelle dug out from whenever that was.
We would have never seen
That said, the borough had no responsibility for that line from the renting side to the borough's meter pit.
It's clearly a benefit to the borough only, it doesn't benefit anybody else. Even Western Berks isn't involved, although looking at it in bigger picture, it does give us a backup, which we're willing to pay up to $50,000 our share, and we're asking that the borough.
So if we said no, they're not gonna do the project, is that what I'm hearing?
No, I didn't say that, well,
With that agreement, I don't think they have a choice.
My understanding-
do you have the latest agreement between Wawa and Western Berks?
Yeah, I'm trying to reconstruct this. Was that
Oh, I'm
an
sorry,
agreement
Chris.
between the borough
Here.
and Western
Your
Berks?
tour done.
When Western Berks took it over? I'm trying to remember the context of that agreement. I don't-
You and me both, 'cause it's
There's
been about a
multiple,
year.
I think
Yes.
there's more than one agreement. So the original agreement had it was being constructed by Rawa and Western Berks.
Exactly, that's the
That's
agreement,
the agreement. There's,
that's the agreement.
other than that agreement, to my knowledge, there's nothing that the borough of Wyomissing has entered into other than that.
All right,
Now, it
because-
sounds like Rawa and Western Berks might have other agreements since that time. related to this.
So, my understanding, and I haven't read any of these agreements, and I don't know the full nature of all the agreements, but from what I've heard from Chip, is that, Western Berks' responsibility ends at the meter pit. And the damage that we're talking about is the pipe over the bridge, which is beyond the meter pit. So it's not Western Berks' responsibility.
That's Rawa, what you're saying.
It's Wawa's
Yeah.
pipe,
Rawa's.
that goes into the meter pit,
There's also the one that had the leaking valve that
yes.
caused the pipe that was drained to fill up with water freeze and break. And
Yeah.
we're only talking about fixing the 17-foot section that broke. We're
Right,
not
right,
replacing it all.
bypass, exactly, that's all we're talking about.
Just the 17 feet, not the whole
I
pipe
don't,
run.
well, I know it's gonna cost about $190,000.
That's what Chips told me the other night,
Yeah,
because it was only where it broke,
yep,
which I was surprised to hear $190,000 to fix that one broke section. But then he said if they weren't able to fix it and test it, then they were gonna have to go back and replace the whole line. And put a drain valve in on the vertical side, on this side of the river, so that valve will be drained open, and in the event that Reading had a valve failure where it filled the pipe, somebody would see water squirting out of the T on the side of the bypass.
I know a contractor's been let for about $190,000. I can't speak to what it addresses, but I know the contract has been let to
Chris,
start
I
work.
believe I have at least two of these agreements electronically. If you don't have them, I can easily resend them.
Well, I know I looked at it, but it was months ago, so, and I don't have that in front of my mind.
If there would be a question, I suggest you talk to me on the lawyer. If there is a question on,
Well, my recollection is what Jim and Michelle have stated, is that we did review these agreements and we concluded that it was not a borough liability. But I don't recall any more than that conclusion.
So my question is, and I know what Rawa's gonna say, they don't really care because it has nothing to do with Rawa.
but they're paying half of it.
But if it's their
That's just under
responsibility,
agreement to have that line in place and functioning.
but if it's their responsibility, I don't understand why Western Berks Water Authority is paying any part of it.
Well, that was my argument, but talking to Jim, it does provide a backup.
I
And
understand.
I'm
it
saying we're
provides
willing to
backup.
pay for some of that. We're willing, because we're to provide water to the boroughs. And if that gives us an additional backup, okay, we're willing to pay our share. That's the way we
The
think.
question is who's legally responsible for the payment?
Well, until I found that agreement, we were holding the bag, no one wanted to contribute. So originally, when this was first found, it was, hey, Borough of Wyomissing, sorry, this is your problem. And then we found the agreement and suddenly, oh,
It's not our problem.
yeah,
But we went from paying the whole $190,000 to paying none of it, and now we're back to up to
Up to
50,000.
50.
Right.
Quarter of it.
A quarter, whatever the cost is, yes.
I was just gonna say the same thing.
You can bring it back, you get done by the council.
Yeah.
Sure. Has the contract been awarded by
Yes.
Rawa?
Yeah, there is, that's done in
longer
December.
moving forward
Yes,
with
I
it.
believe so.
Okay, so Rawa's gonna go forward
close.
And Western Berks has made a commitment to Rawa for half.
Yes.
And so that's the status quo. But I can certainly give all of you my opinion on those agreements again.
Prior to council meeting at some point.
Well, we're expecting, we forward this to the finance committee for approval. Can't approve it here, but I'm suggesting
Well,
take
finance
a
committee's the
motion.
day before council or something like that, so I guess we're good there too.
Yes. So we can move it for further consideration at the finance committee.
I guess I gotta get my head wrapped around why Western Berks, whether.
Can we find out what is this 190? Is the 190 replacing the whole pipe, or is
Well,
this
that's
just
the other
fixing this
question
20
I got.
feet?
It's my understanding it's for cutting out the broken section, replacing the pipe.
So the 17.4 feet that's broken from frost, that's all we're talking about.
I think so.
I
don't
don't
know-
know,
I don't
I've
know
not
if it's
seen
more
the
than that.
contract, I don't know.
Sounds like a lot.
Well,
Again, it's, I mean, Rawa's taking the lead on it.
Let's have.
We need a lot more
let's have the
information
solicitor
than
review. Can we, do you have access to that contract that we can, our solicitor can look at?
Chip is open to
I would think the water authority would have that contract.
Yeah, well, I think that's relevant to the request for a contribution is what is the project that we are contributing to?
Okay,
So if we could get that contract, I don't know if you could facilitate that.
to Michelle?
Chris can get it.
Chris?
What's that?
Yeah, and one of you who is on the Western Berks
Yeah.
board, get a copy of the contract so we can see what the scope of the project is that's been approved.
What's the contract, I know we have the contract between Rawa and Western Berks.
Well, that's easy.
No, I mean, he's asking.
We're talking about the
basically
actual,
the
We're talking
contract
about the
The
For the
contract
actual
to do the work.
for the
To do
work.
Or do you want the bid documents? Well, we'll have to scope.
I don't know if we have that.
I don't think we have that. That would have to come from either Rawa
But we
or
can get it,
Yes.
we can
SSN.
get it.
yes, right, now request the
Okay.
city of Browning.
Do we need a
to
motion
Rawa.
to move this along, to get to you, or do we need anything to do, or just move it on?
We need a motion to authorize you to researches?
Yeah, the two questions I've been hearing, one is to research the contractual obligation that the borough has relative, to research whether the borough has any contractual obligation to repair the pipe, and second, to find out the scope of the project that Rawa has awarded a contract for. And I can get back to you on both of those things, assuming I can get a copy of the project agreement that Rawa has approved.
You can't, I mean.
And then as far as,
Vitally important that it's not individual.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
I don't know if the committee is
Yeah.
willing to make any
Well,
conditional
it doesn't get to that.
recommendation.
I don't feel comfortable.
Sometimes that's easier.
I'd rather.
Wouldn't it be bid?
Exactly.
Yeah, Jim's gonna look on pen bid, to see if he can find the bid specs.
Are there not sort of unintended consequences here? You have the black letter law of this contract that says you have this responsibility, you have that responsibility. And here we sit on the other side of this pipe and we're using it, but there's nothing in the agreement that says we have to do anything. Well, what if we just tell them to go pound sand, we're not doing anything? Aren't there some unintended consequences of having two parties that we just told to go take a hike, have to deal with this, and somehow we're gonna be involved in something there? If the water's flowing in that direction.
Hypothetically, there is, even if the borough has no legal obligation to repair that pipe, there is the risk of losing water service if it remains unrepaired. And there's another risk, which is that even though some other party has a contractual obligation to maintain the pipe, they refuse to do that, and, you know, what action are you willing to take to enforce their contractual obligation to repair the pipe, even if we don't have an immediate need for the water?
So now we just look at the value of $50,000.
Versus the legal fees and all that stuff. I'm not saying we should.
No, I
pay it.
do.
I'm
It's
just-
only for Wyomissing benefit, it doesn't benefit anybody else.
It seems like everything's changed though
There's
in
20 agenda
midstream, so
topics.
let's go back and get everything from, you know, the original
Make sure you have all the facts.
proposal and
Well,
move
I
on.
agree with that, but
Yeah,
nothing
let's move
changed.
forward with that.
But we can't make it, we're unable to make an educated decision.
I make the motion as to what, as Chris said, we review the contracts between Wawa and Western Berks, and we review the agreements, and you come back and finish.
I second that.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Jen?
Can I just ask a question? I mean, if we are gonna take on this $50,000 cost, is that something that can be sort of billed through the water bill? So that the, 1,100 or so homes in Wyomissing Hills who do not benefit from this are not paying for it?
No, because first of all, Wyomissing Western Berkshire Water Authority serves 3 boroughs. In effect, what we're doing, that 50,000 that we're paying, is really help being paid by West Reading and Shillington. So you could make that point that why should West Reading and Shillington be paying any part of this? However, Western Berkshire is willing to pay, since it is a backup only to Wyomissing, we're willing to eat the cost.
Well, the other way to look at it, the borough does have, they set the water rates to the borough. So, I mean, the borough could say, well, we're gonna incorporate that 50,000 into our water on top of that.
Well,
We've already done 12%.
Well, I'm just saying, the Wyomissing Hills doesn't benefit from this at all.
Neither does most of Wyomissing.
Right.
we haven't used it, it's a backup situation, we haven't used it for a couple of years, but in the case the day comes, we need that backup, and we don't have it, then what do you do?
Well, let me ask you a question to Jim, and that is, isn't there an interconnection between the Wyomissing water distribution system and the,
PA water.
PA water, distribution system, so that, I think there is a backup function that we have with PA American. I don't know if this particular supply of water would, serve that backup function with PA American or not?
No, we're not.
No. It's only a raw pipe going to that meter pit, that's it.
All right, well, we have a motion and a second to basically get all the information that we need to make a decision. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Sanitary sewer?
We have pre-application number 2 for PSI Pumping Solutions, $37,544.13.
Still in budget?
Yeah, we're hoping, I'm gonna say January, and I was hoping December, that by end of January we'd be up and running. But just like everything else, they can't get the pumps or the controls in a timely fashion.
And we make a recommendation to pay
I'll make that recommendation. Motion to recommend payment.
application number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a second? I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to pay application number 2 for the amount of $37,544.13 to PSI Pump Solutions. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries, pass it on to council. Spring Interceptor,
Hold on a sec, sorry. What do you need on this?
last month it was out to bid, we do it in the spring, is there anything new to this?
So the bid,
Yeah, this is new.
Yeah.
yeah, the bids have been opened, and for the section of, our West Lawn Interceptor that they would be reconstructing as part of their project, because if, remember, they're right next to each other, and the constructability of being able to do one without the other is almost impossible. That work is coming in at $102,500 is the bid item for that.
Sorry, I'm trying to find, wasn't it in the information?
I don't think it was, I don't know if it's in your information
Let's
there.
go over the bid tab.
This,
I have
what
all
we're
the
talking about here is down by the
Let's look
swimming
at the
pool.
plans.
The Spring Township Interceptor runs through that general area, as does the West Lawn Interceptor. And we are going to be replacing it's not ours, but because of our contribution to it, we're gonna be replacing that West Lawn Interceptor probably in 2025. Adding this $100,000 now will make the constructability of Spring Township Interceptor and the West Lawn Interceptor a lot easier, shallower, not as deep, and it will basically come off our tab when we do the West Lawn Interceptor in 2025.
Alright, so this
If
is
that
not
makes
a,
any sense.
this is not a budget item for this year or next for the most.
This is a cost, an unbudgeted cost for 2024.
No, so we're gonna pay for it next year, even though it's not gonna happen until 2025?
No, it's gonna, this will happen in 2024. But the West Lawn Interceptor work will be 2025 or later.
So the savings we're gonna generate would be.
Down the road.
Will
Down
be
on
off
a
of the
different budget.
2025 budgeted amount for the West Lawn Interceptor construction.
Well, for the rest of the West Lawn
The
Interceptor.
remaining portion.
But this is a portion of the West Lawn
This
Interceptor.
is a small
That's
portion.
what I'm saying, the 102,500 will come out of that reserve for the West Lawn project and be paid in '24 as a reimbursement to Spring Township.
You guys have looked at this and it looks accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so it's November 20th and we're already $102,000 over budget for 2025, for 24.
Correct.
Perfect.
Maybe another 50.
Maybe another 50. All right, so, do anything we have to,
I'll make a motion to approve the bid received from Wexcon for Borough section of West Lawn Interceptor.
hey, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. The easement agreement.
Okay, this is for easements that go through Borough Park property for the Spring Township Interceptor project. So Spring is asking for the borough to grant 2 Spring easements for installation of the Spring project in borough property.
And where are they?
I have them up on the screen.
They're just little pieces here and there.
Yeah.
Do you want to describe where these are?
There are 5 separate easement agreements that
I can try.
the solicitor for Spring has prepared
I'm gonna blow this up so you can see that.
for the sections that go through borough property.
So they're doing the work in the borough and they're paying for it, right?
Yeah, this is a $3 million ditty for them.
Okay, so where are we talking?
This first one here is, the top piece there. You see Evans Avenue, to the right is a swimming pool, to the left is our open space, and, they're coming through our property there to the west of Evans Avenue for a
Below
short
the
piece.
field hockey field there.
Yeah, that's below the field.
Bless you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's one of them. The next one down is right near there, that's Old Mill Road, right at the swimming pool. They're gonna be running down the edge of the road or in the macadam trail there, basically. And then jogging to the left to go, under the creek outside of the bridge that crosses the creek there.
Okay,
This one is, where the hell are we at here?
Yeah,
That appears to be, Old Mill, the big field on Old Mill Road,
yeah,
between the swimming pool and Wyomissing Boulevard.
got it.
Same.
So there's no public, there's no homes? that would be
No.
sort of-
No, it's-
That's what I was really.
It's
getting at.
essentially all in parkland.
No, but I mean.
There are other easements for this project
They've-
that Spring will be seeking from
I'm
private
sure.
property owners.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
They have them already, I
But
believe.
there will be a somewhat significant disturbance to the parkland. It's not really in an area where most people are going to flood. I mean, there's not trails through there, but.
Right. Well,
That's down by the duck pond, that
sounds like we don't need to, I mean, it's, we gotta do it.
That's a technicality.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to recommend to council the discussed easement agreements for Spring Township's Interceptor project. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those,
Somebody's supposed to do it.
subject to solicitor review, thank you. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, pass it on to council.
A couple of quick questions after Jim. The way this draft easement from the township is prepared, is exclusive. Now, I'm wondering if there are other utilities that might be affected by their proposed easements. Is there anything,
I can't,
stormwater or water or?
the only thing that I would think that they're gonna run into some conflict with possibly is a water line off the shoulder of Old Mill Road. Our utility, it's, I'm gonna say it's a game day decision when they get to that point.
Okay, well, I wanna make sure that we tag that issue, so if you could identify which of these 5 easements that might.
I don't think you wanted any of them, do you?
What's that?
I don't think you wanted any of them. They don't have an exclusive now, and they're adding little pieces to what they have now. I don't think we want these pieces to be exclusive and the rest to
We
not
have the
be.
right to install utilities.
Right, what if we wanna do something in the park and run a water line across there? We can't now, right? By their exclusivity clause.
I agree with your logic. Okay,
Me
so
too.
I'm gonna change it from exclusive to shared. They also, made their construction easement perpetual, which I've never seen in any easement. So, so I'm gonna change that. And also, they didn't include a duty to restore the surface easement area, which I've never seen.
Very important.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's gotta get restored back.
All right, so I'm gonna make a number of changes.
Perfect. Okay. CCTV cleaning and repairs, we have a payment that's
Final
due.
payment application, 11,000, mostly manhole work, 11,000.
$856, signed by Borough budget, we're good.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll make that motion.
we have a motion to, we have a motion and a second to pay $11,856.75 for payment application number 5 to
Sewer specialty.
Sewer Specialty Services. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Streets. Survey is complete, design is ongoing.
Progress.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing to discuss.
Nothing new on the State Hill Road, looks like the same thing from last month.
I expect at some point in January or February, Don Lurch, who's the engineer for the the engineer picked by PennDOT for the project will be coming in with an updated presentation.
For the State Hill Road project.
Yes.
Okay. For the purpose of this meeting, that's all we need to discuss, fair?
Yes.
Yes.
Cambridge Avenue Culvert pedestrian bridge,
Yeah,
now we have some things we gotta pay.
The deposit for the pedestrian bridge is what's in payout one.
Okay. Is that budgeted for this year or next year?
It was not budgeted for this year. It was budgeted for next year.
It'll be, we could, if it's okay, we could drag our feet for 2 weeks and make it a January 1 payment. I don't
That'd be
think it's
great,
the end of the world.
since we're already at minus $155,000.
Well, it is budgeted for next year,
I know.
yes.
Well, that's true, but we actually fell ahead of the budget. Alright, so we need a motion to award construction masters a bid for, we need a motion to pay the construction masters services $37,980.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Administration and Police Department study needs study. We're good at this point?
Discuss the formation of a subcommittee. We never got anywhere with that, and I didn't know if at this point we wanted to wait until 24 and new council members are
I
seated.
think it probably makes sense to wait till the council members are here. Okay, what's the status of that building that we talked about?
The other one
Yeah,
is no longer on the market.
got it. Okay. Berks garage project.
There's two payment applications, both, well, they are, what is that, Jim, is that a typo, you think?
What's that?
One's for 4,500, one says 4,050 in the dollar amount on the actual.
One is plumbing, the other one's HVAC.
Yeah, I know they're same contractor, has two different contracts, but I'm wondering, just seems odd that one's 4,500, one's 4,000.
That one
That's
says
4,500.
right?
Yeah, okay, so it's correct as
Yeah,
on the
4,050.
agenda. All right.
4,050.
Okay, we need a motion to pay application 1 to H Moyer for the plumbing of $4,500 at the Borough Garage.
So moved.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We also have a payment application number 1 to AH Moyer for the HVAC for the amount of $4,050.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Fifth. Okay, good to know. Fast Bridge Fiber?
No update, I just, like I had previously stated, I'm leaving that on the agenda
Yep.
in case
In
necessary.
case someone starts screaming. Stonehouse Park Project, where is,
So McCarthy's office is in the process of putting together bid specifications to put the project out to bid. Based off the public comment received today and at council last week, I didn't know if there was any interest in discussing any revisions to the project, which I think Jim and I are on the same page of strongly recommending against revising at this point. One, it puts the grant funding in jeopardy. Two, his office has already incurred significant expense and the borough paid a significant amount to a consultant already to prepare the plans that have been reviewed by infrastructure, park and shade, the rec board and the planning commission, and ultimately council. I can pull those plans up, which was what I was in the process of getting to, if anybody needs a refresher.
Yeah. Please.
So I don't believe, what Mr. Peterson suggested would comply with ADA requirements. The current plan that shows, let me pull this up a little bit. No, let me get up. The screen. So first, to be clear, there is ADA parking proposed on the south side, Parkside Drive South. The problem is, when you are creating ADA parking, the building it is serving has to be within a certain distance of where the parking spots are located. So putting ADA parking spaces over here to access the building that many feet away does not comply with ADA requirements. The parking lot in question that's being constructed is shown up in here. These are the two ADA parking spaces. You can see this will be the ADA access. I would add, this is the parking lot. All of this, which is where people sit, which is where people sled, is not getting touched.
well, I would agree with that, because I've had my kids sledding, they sled right next to the slope zone house.
But you're still going to have this area
Used to sled on the other side of the house, too.
over there.
There's a greater pitch.
Shorter but steeper.
So, I mean, going back to the point being, if you want this project to go out to bid not looking like this, you need to make that decision now.
Is there any feasible way to address those property owners' complaints across the street?
Jim?
Sorry, Craig was asking something about that.
Is there any, Jim, is there any way to address the neighbors' concerns about tree removal, having it go too far back in, can we spread it out?
I mean,
The ADA parking is too, that's not, it's the other parking that I think that he's complaining about.
I mean, I know that, I guess, I wasn't at the meeting, but there was some discussion about along Parkside Drive, that won't work, because it's too steep to meet ADA, and that's why Architectura had drew this concept and came in. As far as looking at alternatives, that was them that did the study for you, not us, so I haven't looked at any other alternatives. We were basically putting their plan out to bid, getting the necessary details and conservation district approval and specs together to bid their plans.
So that number of off-street parking spaces are required, right? You got
The
ADAs.
two ADA,
Two
I mean, you
ADA
don't have to put
required.
any off-street parking spaces there, but why, I mean, I guess staff and other committees that we discussed this at, why wouldn't you?
Your ADA spaces, the number of ADA is based off the number of total parking spaces.
If we put none there, that's a problem.
Yes.
If you have no parking spaces, you don't have any requirement for ADA.
Oh, you can still have ADA extensive requirement.
Well, I think.
We need accessible parking spaces for the stone house.
Yes, and that
Really?
existing ADA space on the
There's
street
no
is
other,
not ADA.
there's no other
compliant.
spaces, you don't.
It's a park, we have to have reasonable accommodation in excess of the code of the percentage of spaces.
Yes.
But isn't there some stipulation?
Outside of the building code, they have to have
Outside
reasonable.
of grants.
Outside of the
Yeah, that's what I wanna
WCC,
know.
they're required to have one for the park.
Are we bound by
And
terms
for
of
the
the
zone.
grant to put off-street parking?
I mean, the whole point of going in for the grant was not only to redo all the walking paths and trails, but to make it ADA compliant for parking and access purposes, yes. Because, I mean, at this point, it would literally take one person in a wheelchair coming in here and suing us for us to have to do this anyway.
Are there two ADA spaces, is that what you're saying?
There's two
Two
proposed.
up there, and then there's two additional down here.
Okay, I don't think anybody's talking about those.
No,
That's
correct.
concerned.
No, they're,
So there's two up here, and you're talking about parking, there's already parking here, just paint a white line and that makes a difference?
No.
you,
No.
And there's parking all along Park
But it's-
Street.
but it doesn't-
On-street parking,
but
not
the,
off-street.
the on-street parking doesn't meet ADA criteria, which was a maximum of 2.02% slope in any direction and an accessible path from that structure to the public amenity being utilized, in this case, the stone house, the tennis courts, the pond, everything else.
Okay,
So
so just,
that's why the parking spaces along the Parkside Drive North do not comply with ADA. Right, standard people can park in them, there's no, but it doesn't meet the Americans with Disabilities Act criteria for an accessible parking space.
all right, you said it off a lot, and I think I grasped some of it.
Okay.
Two ADA spaces have to be reconfigured. The rest of the parking spaces that go toward the tennis courts also have to be configured differently to be ADA compliant for the whole property.
The parking spaces along Parkside Drive North cannot be reconfigured in any manner to meet ADA.
Okay, so all
They
you
have
have
to
to
be off
do
of
is
the
worry
road.
about the two in front of the front door at the stone house. Is that what you're saying?
Well-
Two ADA spaces in front of the stone house are the only two spaces that require special attention according to the grant.
Well, I mean, I don't know that, I didn't.
We'd have to go back and
we have to
honestly
go
talk
back
to
to
DCD.
the-
This is the exact plan that was submitted with our grant
I know, but
application.
it just shows you a box up there with some X's on it. doesn't
No, it shows each space.
It shows these,
Shows
one
all
space,
the
two
spaces
space,
and
here's the other spaces. I
There's
mean,
only two ADA spaces.
correct.
Why are you pointing at everything else? It's just-
Because those are additional parking spaces that go with the parking lot.
Okay, but what these folks that were here were suggesting was just going Parkside Drive North up toward the tennis courts and leave the spaces that are there as they are, period.
But I think what Michelle's saying is our grant application and award was based on constructing what's on this plan.
Yes.
Why do we have to do all this, all these other red lines here, if all we have to do is comply with the ADA problem and the parking doesn't even have to be touched?
But you gotta listen to what they just said.
Why, I am
The
listening.
grant application, what,
This plan
This
was,
that was presented by us
To the state.
to the state.
When-
We have
No, I know.
to, we have to
Your
go
grant.
back to square one if we alter the
But if
parking.
all we had to do for purposes of compliance with them, outside of what we're suggesting for our own use, whatever, and there's two ADA spaces up there, and we could probably put two ADA spaces in there for $100,000 and be done with it, right?
But then we're not improving the trails and anything.
Well, that's true, but that's a
And
whole
that-
other story.
that
Well, no, that's
needs-
part of the grant though.
No, I
That's-
understand, but if you don't have to spend $600,000 to do all that, all you have to do is fix two ADA spaces, you can then reconfigure the whole project by figuring out what everybody wants, because there's people coming in here and say, we never heard about this thing, what are you doing here?
We
Well,
need to
Ron,
do the
but
whole
first of all,
project
you
though.
know, this has been talked about starting when I came on council 5 years ago, if not 6, with the pedestrian bridge, first of all, okay? This has been discussed in Park and Shade, infrastructure,
Rec board,
council,
planning
rec board.
commission.
You know,
Okay.
all they gotta do is look on the website or attend a meeting, and they can see that this stuff has been there.
Chris, there's no requirement by the MPC to notify neighbors when there's a land development plan. I didn't think so. Yeah.
So we have two residents, you know, that are opposed to this. You know, for a line of sight, there's 2.
I understand.
Two down there and one left.
I,
One left. It
let's,
doesn't
let's
matter.
move, let's move on.
It doesn't, they're
So-
not, or is it a small amount?
Is it possible to contact and see if we can reduce the parking spaces? If not, I don't know if we can jeopardize the grant.
We can certainly ask.
I think they'll probably want to create it somewhere else.
I mean,
That
of
would-
course,
that
we're
would
not
be-
gonna just have a slab of macadam there with some lines and be done with it. I mean, you know, everything we do in this borough is, first of all, it's done for a reason, and it's done for aesthetics as well, okay? So we put other plant material in. After the parking lot would be in, what's to say we can't plant some trees and soften it? Of course we can.
There's a bunch of plantings that are shown.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that
that's flat, Jim?
Well,
Coming
the-
off the
Yeah,
so-
you can see your contours.
the spot where,
Yeah.
the spot where David Horn's group, that's Architectura, proposed it is the, on that side of Parkside Drive North, is the flattest area to build it. If we went further left or right on that plan, it's steeper, so they picked the flattest area to do it. And they also had an entrance and an exit, because I think they were well aware that the borough doesn't want people backing out of parking spaces onto Parkside Drive North from the parking lot. So it's kind of hard to do that. I mean, you're gonna end up with a loop in and out like they have, so you're gonna have a long driveway for 2 parking spaces that, unfortunately, as we all know, if you put a piece of macadam near a park, somebody's gonna park on it. I mean, it's just, they're gonna put one wheel on the macadam and one wheel on the grass if we don't do something, but,
I don't wanna see us gamble this away. It's a
I
beautiful.
mean, certainly we
beautiful
can-
plan.
In the process, no question.
certainly it can be landscaped in a different manner if there's something. I mean, I think grade wise, the spaces, the paving's still going to be lower in elevation than Parkside Drive North. Just because we have to, it's not going up, it's gotta go down to get on that little plateau, I think it's 18 inches or so.
So we're getting $460,000 for this project, of which we're paying $130,000. That's what we're jeopardizing by saying
Exactly.
we're not gonna do it. So I think unfortunately, I think we need to move forward.
Yeah.
Nothing. All right, RFP for the parkland study.
The submissions were due November 13th. Greg and I had the joy of waiting through all 8 of them. We met on Friday to go over our choices, and there was no collusion in advance of our meeting. We were on the same page with the top 4 that we picked.
Top how many?
4.
Okay.
I mean, we whittled the 8 down to 4, and we ranked each of those 4 also in the same order. So our suggestion is, looking at our calendars and the dates that were thrown out in the RFP for potential consultant meetings, the only date Greg and I are both available is November 29th from 8 to 11 a.m. So the 4 firms we picked to interview are Flora Teeter, Natural Lands, Chester Valley Engineers in combination with Aquaterra, and ECS. What I think what we both like about Flora Teeter and Natural Lands, Flora Teeter is for profit, but they partner with Berks Nature. And Natural Lands is completely a 501c3. So they're more locally based, they're familiar with our parkland specifically. I think we would get a good result from either one of them, but I am interested to see what they say in person. So is there any committee or council member, we can't have a quorum of you, but is anybody interested in sitting in on those consultant interviews? Wednesday the 29th from 8 to 11 a.m. And then we have fire and police at 12, so that'll be a fun full day in this room.
I can't do that way.
Unlike today.
If anybody wants to join that committee,
Do you want
to review the bid processes. I wouldn't be glad anything to it anyway.
to- Well, it's to interview the consultants. The top.
I think I'm available.
I'll be there.
I'd be,
Let those two do it.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm gonna schedule 1 at 8, 1 at 9, 1 at 10.
So we need to make a motion to approve scheduling interviews on November 29th for the four consultants with the recommendation to council. I'll make that motion. There's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Sewage capacity convenience fee. Conveyance.
We kinda already talked about this.
Yeah, I think so.
I
So
don't know.
basically, we're gonna say,
We
we're
need
gonna
to
charge you
figure
per
out-
EDU once we get to EDUs, but the idea is if a developer asks, we're gonna charge you, if you need 100 EDUs, you gotta charge for 100 EDUs.
Right, and you're eventually gonna need to do that to the other pumps, the Windward pump station as well.
Okay.
So I don't think we specifically covered this in the prior motion. We asked the gyms to come up with number of EDUs and a cost figure, but this is to take it a step further and develop the mechanism for charging the property owners and developers. Maybe that was already covered by your prior motion.
I thought it was.
Okay.
But
If so,
if you want me to make something different.
I think, if I got, Steve, when we discussed it, you were saying, you used the example of if we went to 1,000 new EDUs and they were 210, they paid 21%.
Right.
I think.
okay, I don't think we need any additional action
Okay.
on that. We know what to do.
Okay. RP study sewer conveyance fee, Cambridge Avenue sewer work.
Oh, okay, Dixon, it was PDF Thursday. So Jim, it's just a little Google Earth, it has a red line going down it. I know we said new, so, Mrs. Molinaro is the one, if we remember, got a discrepancy on the bill, but then found out was never connected to sewer. So to comply with our Act 537 plan, she has to be connected. Jim and I went out and looked at it, and it seems like the logical and most cost-effective way to her connect is to run her sewer lateral out the back of her house and then go across the borough lands to tie into our manhole. Otherwise, she'd have to run down Lowers Lane, that's old Jim Lowers. Lowers Lane. I was confused which one's old and which one's Lowers.
I don't think there is an old.
Just in my head.
Old mill.
Old Mill. So run down Lowers Lane and then have to restore the road, and we have all those big trees along that road, so we're worried about the trees dying, road restoration, but what it would require is for the borough to be willing to grant her an easement to go through there for that sewer lateral. So I haven't met with Mrs. Molinaro, because I didn't want to offer this as an option and then find out council was not in favor of doing that.
How long of that easement would be required?
250, 300 feet probably?
I'd say
Something like
250 is
that.
fair.
And this wouldn't interfere with anything?
No,
Need-
there's nothing there.
Okay, so am I hearing
Yeah,
that we,
deer might get rustled out of bed.
so I'm hearing that this committee wants to recommend the council to authorize the borough engineer and solicitor to prepare an easement agreement with the property owner.
I make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Will you not be able to handle those expenses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because we seem to be saving a substantial amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, birds going down the street?
Yeah.
Because there's no room to run between the paving and the trees, because there are very large trees through that section. It would kill them. The market would kill them.
I'll include that in my motion.
Parkland's deer, I'm not sure why that's on here, but go ahead.
Still can't cut the trees down.
Do you want to take the lead since it has
Well, you might know, I'm in the Parklands daily, and I understood that there have, and my husband found just carcasses, about a week ago, I think. And, release, there was a deer carcass, was it the Highlands proper? And, I mean, you all know better than I whether they died, they seem to have been killed or poached or a natural death, I'm not quite sure. There is a concern about poaching since there were some residents who were getting licenses last year.
So it's our understanding last week there were 4 deceased deer. All appear to have been killed by bow and arrow or motor vehicle. So we're not aware of any that are being shot with guns, which is good. Because not only is it not that season yet, but there's nowhere in the borough you should be discharging a firearm. There was one that was shot and died by bow and arrow behind Dr. Sweet's house. He called it into the PD. They did respond, and at some point, the person who shot it must have been watching because they left the deer there, notified Public Works to go get it the next morning. And when Public Works went, it was gone. So somebody took it. Outside of that, any of the deer that Public Works take out of the parklands, the Game Commission does come and pick up. They test for chronic wasting disease and a bunch of other things. I'm not aware of any that have been shot with a gun this year that have been found.
So could I just ask a question? When you say appear to be shot by bow and arrow, does that mean the arrow went straight through the deer and there's no?
The one behind the Sweets property, I did find half the arrow, so it was
Okay.
definitely
So
shot.
that's one. And how many others?
And you can tell if it was shot with a gun, the other side.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well,
Blown out.
that sounds reasonable. It also sounds reasonable if you shot with bow and arrow, there's part of the arrow is still in the deer.
It can go
They
straight
usually go
through.
through,
Yeah.
more often than not.
Okay, well, I guess my concern is if someone shoots a deer with a bow and arrow and it's legal,
Mhm.
but they don't, I'm not a hunter, so I guess I need Keith back for this part, but
They should be doing one of 2 things.
They should be
One, making
looking
every
every-
effort possible to
right.
track the animal, including asking permission of adjacent property owners to enter property and
Correct.
find and remove, which that's the one thing I think that's missing here, but at the same time, you could argue they're not also coming onto parkland land and dragging the deer out for the most part. So,
They really should ask for permission.
yeah.
You shoot it from private property, that's fine, but if it does run on to our parklands
you
property.
need to ask permission.
Yeah, they need to, that way they can go over.
Is
We
this
can
something that
help.
we can report to the fishing game club or whatever? That's,
Game Commission.
Game Commission, thanks.
It would be really, I think, for the residents that are letting people hunt. Like,
Yeah.
If you do shoot something, that's fine, if you need to.
Well,
go
I
back-
agree that if a resident allows someone to shoot a deer on their property legally and they don't do everything they're supposed to do via deer etiquette and deer law, that the resident should be fined.
Right, so my.
Well, the hunter would be fine.
Okay,
Well,
well,
so my
someone's gotta
question
be
is,
fined.
if a deer is found on Dr. Sweet's property, there's probably an assumption that Dr. Sweet shot it. If he didn't shoot it, it's on his property, what's supposed to happen now?
But just because it was on his property, I would assume he shot.
No,
Any
I would
call-
assume that
All I'm
they
saying
He
is, if
called
it's
it
on
in
his
for Pete's
property, who's supposed to get the deer off his property?
The
Us?
person who shot it?
Game
Well,
Commission,
the person
Yeah,
who shot
it's
it.
his
Game
property, game commission.
Game Commission would come get it.
remember,
get it
these
out.
aren't our deer.
No, I understand, I'm just trying to figure out how we get them off the property.
If it's our property, the borough's property, we go and get them. If it's private property, they do it.
And then, and you give it to the Game Commission, they check for the chronic wasting disease
If
and
things
dispose
look,
of
if
the
they think
animal.
it looks weird, yeah, they'll test
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if there's anything we can really do, except,
No, it's information.
fair.
Could tranquilize them.
Today, the intergovernmental agreement with West Reading for borrowing equipment,
I
I'm
asked.
far from an attorney, but look fine.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because an attorney drafted it. So to give, some of you know this, some of you don't, when we borrow equipment from West Riding, it is not covered by our insurance carrier unless we take out a standalone policy. So I asked Chris to draft something that hopefully the insurance carrier would accept, and they've since indicated that they will accept this. So that our current policy will cover borrowed equipment, not just leased rented equipment.
Okay.
I've also sent this to Dean Murray and asked that he review it with West Riding Council and they adopt something similar.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve recommended council resolution 2023-28 to authorize the execution of the intergovernmental agreement with West Reading for borrowing equipment.
Does not include in the police department equipment.
No, this is just for.
There's separate agreements already in place for that.
So it is.
Okay, second. A motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Is there any old business before the group? Anybody got old business? Hearing none, do we have any new business? Hearing none,
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
second. Motion adjourned, motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr.
Sorry, there was no part for you there, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And by the way, I appreciated the spirited discussion. I really didn't expect it, I just thought it would be an open and shut door case, in the sense that the infrastructure committee would, vote to continue with the plan, because I understand you're this far along with the grant. You just can't make last minute, types of things.
We'll
But
make
I
it,
did-
we'll make it look as nice as possible.
Yeah, I know you will. We've lived here for 23 years. We know the borough does things with excellence, and we appreciate that. But yeah, it's true, there's only 3 residents. But I have to say, I think it's rather unreasonable to expect residents to always be looking on the website to check the agendas. If that's the case, and if every resident feels like they have to do that, you got a trust issue. And that's a problem there. So I'd recommend in the future that residents, even though there may only be 3, at least be consulted, or else, it's not like I like coming to the meetings. I think you guys are nice people, but I don't really like to be put in positions like this. This is rather awkward.
I think your point's fair.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, I appreciate everything the borough does, and I also appreciated the discussion. Thank you so much.
Here, I agree with your You guys
Ask
are
me next
awesome.
year.
Very kind of you.
But you wanted me to give it to you, I just realized you didn't sign it. But it was here,